Architecture Codex. If you want to see more, like, comment, share, and most importantly, subscribe.
In Star Trek, The Wrath of Khan, we learn that the Klingons have a saying that revenge is a dish best served cold. Or, Portas bir jabil re quaque ne. And you thought my French was awful. If there was ever a crime against architecture that demanded revenge, it was the destruction of the McKim Mead and White Pennsylvania Station, which was built in 1910 and covered 8 acres of prime New York City real estate. This great building was decapitated and buried in 1963, and since then, travelers of the Long Island Railroad and Amtrak have had to endure a train station akin to the deepest and darkest caverns of the Klingon prison world of Rura Penth. But in 2021, McKim, Mead, and White get the last word when the Moynihan train hall opens up in their very own Farley post office building across the street. The Moynihan train hall was restored and revitalized by Skidmore, Owens, and Merrill. And while the restoration is bright and glorious, it remains cold. Our backstory begins in the earliest days of the 20th century as New York City's greatest train stations were being built: Grand Central and Penn Station. Grand Central Terminal, Architecture Codex number 21, is a neoclassical building inspired by the ancient Roman baths and designed by Reed and Stem with help from Wetmore and Warren. Around the same time, McKim, Mead, and White, who lost the Grand Central Terminal design competition, were commissioned to design Pennsylvania Station and also found inspiration from the ancient Roman baths. Both buildings were grand, Gilded Age edifices with concourses rendered in traditionally detailed carved stone, while their more utilitarian train platforms, hidden from the exterior, hinted at a steel and glass modernism that would soon overtake Beaux-Arts architecture as the dominant architecture form of the 20th century. Shortly after Penn Station was completed, across 8th Avenue, McKim, Mead, and White built the Federal Post Office Building, another neoclassical Beaux-Arts building. The facade facing Penn Station had monumental Corinthian cap columns, above which was inscribed on the entablature, "Neither snow nor rain nor heat nor gloom of night stays these couriers from the swift completion of their appointed rounds." This was never actually officially part of the United States Postal Service. It was just a quote taken from the Greek historian Herodotus, referring to Persian Empire couriers. The architects placed the quote on the building simply to make the building even more classical. A mere 50 years later, and continental train travel was on the decline. These large terminals appeared to be dated, useless, and they sat on very valuable New York City real estate. Developers got to Penn Station first, demolishing it in 1963 to build above the new Madison Square Garden, which is not near New York's Madison Avenue, not a square, and certainly not a garden. The outcry was immediate and loud, and while it was too late to save Penn Station, the formation of the New York City Landmarks Preservation Committee and the founding of modern historic preservation managed to keep Grand Central Terminal from the same fate. Meanwhile, by the 21st century, the now christened Farley Post Office was deemed non-essential to the operations of the United States Postal Service. I cannot find a clear reason for this. Perhaps more efficient operations were set up elsewhere, and perhaps the internet led to the decline of the first-class letter. But in any case, perhaps these two and other reasons led to the sale of the property in 2002 to the New York State government. And immediately people began to talk about using the building to improve Penn Station. This effort was led in part by former U.S. Senator Moynihan, who said that he got his start shining shoes at the old Penn Station. There are two aspects of the old Farley post office building that figure significantly in its adaptive reuse. The first is the facade on 8th Avenue. This is McKim, Mead, and White at their best. Beautiful Beaux-Arts classicism, refined and elite, which is being restored to serve apparently as the lobby for the office development. But nested inside the post office is its core function, akin to the train sheds attached to the grand lobbies of Penn Station and Grand Central Terminal. And like the train sheds, the architects felt freer here to build sensibly and without decoration. Consequently, the space evokes power, the power of the industrial age to think big and bold. Here is the main function of the building, to sort mail, manifest in a large, columnless, sunlit space defined by huge trusses with extruded steel and rivets, the kind of design that steampunk imitators wish they could do for real. These deep trusses across the space were also part of a catwalk system, allowing postal supervisors to walk above the sorters on the main floor and monitor their work. The main sorting room of the post office was placed directly above the train tracks because in 1910, nearly all intercity mail was delivered by train. These 1910-era train tracks then led west to both the North River tunnels, allowing passengers to pass under the Hudson River from New Jersey, and also to the surface Hudson train yards on Manhattan Island's river edge. The development of Hudson Yards, Architecture Codex No. 4, was built above these tracks and derives its name from them. In the 21st century, this means that architects could merely punch holes in the floor of the sorting room and deliver passengers directly to the track platforms, which is what they did. The concourse has been finished with smooth modern sense, using enduring materials and electronic signage screens. But the conversion of the utilitarian space lacks the kind of humanizing elements that McKim, Mead, and White put in most of their Beaux-Arts buildings. Things like Greco-Roman columns, caryatids, or even statues. And so the effect is modern, but perhaps a bit cold. Above the sorting room was the immense structure that held a field of skylights. Natural sun was the most economical way to light the immense room, although there was electric light to augment on cloudy days and certainly at night. It was simply done, and no one felt compelled to advertise this as daylight harvesting. In written materials, no one details why the original skylights were not restored, which is usually mandated by historic preservation regulations. I find such regulations are often arbitrary and counterproductive to adaptive reuse, and I'd rather see these decisions put in the hands of the architects than in the hands of political bureaucrats. So I don't see a problem with removing the array of small square skylights and replacing them with new undulating glass vaults that now cover the space. Those new vaults, the key feature of Skidmore, Owens, and Merrill's design, provide more light and give the concourse greater monumentality. I have also not seen anything written regarding how that much glass, which will produce an inordinate amount of heat gain in the summer, meets today's energy performance standards. And it may be that it does not meet those rigid standards, but that too is okay on the occasional monumental building, such as this one. So there is a happy ending, in spite of the horrific fate suffered by the original Pennsylvania station. And McKim, Mead, and White are once again the designers of a grand concourse that greets train travelers. And the original post office building will survive with its great facade on 8th Avenue, in spite of the fact that the building became as obsolete as the postage stamp. As for the original Pennsylvania station, well, it is gone, but we have our photographs and memories and written accounts. And to quote Dr. McCoy, also from The Wrath of Khan, he's really not dead if we remember him. I'm Michael Molinelli, and this is Architecture Codex.